What's something you wish people would stop romanticizing? Story 1. Street fighting. Someone can take a bad fall, hit their head on a curb or stairs, and die right there. As a lifelong martial artist, I can tell you that people are very fragile. It's not at all like the movies. Even a fight you win can leave you with permanent injuries, like my missing front teeth. Edit. Wow, I didn't know this would bring out so many tragic stories. My deepest sympathy to everyone that violence has touched. Answer. My cousin did 4 years for manslaughter behind a bar fight. The dude didn't hit his head against anything they could see. It was just a regular fight that he lost. He went down for only a few seconds and got back up. They were separated and kicked out of the bar. Dude was okay and drove home with no problem. Then he died in his sleep 2 days later from an injury to his brain from the fight. My cousin was arrested and charged for that passing. Story 2. I wish people would stop romanticizing working yourself to passing for success. Like, stop acting like running on 3 hours of sleep, chugging energy drinks, and sacrificing every shred of happiness is some badge of honor. Hustle culture convinces you that if you're not ready to die at your desk, you're not trying hard enough. Imagine celebrating burnout as if it's a character trait instead of a warning sign. Success shouldn't mean becoming a shell of a human who won by losing everything else. Hustling is cool until you realize you're just sprinting toward an early grave. Story 3. Being a workaholic. I work 50 hours a week on top of college, and this is after reducing my hours. I would never brag about it. I'm so exhausted all the time. I can't wait for the day that I get to have more free time. I work with people who work as much or more than me, and I swear to God their only personality is the fact that their whole life is work. I genuinely feel bad for them. Story 4. Autism. But every few years, the internet picks and chooses a new thing. It used to be depression, EDs, self-harm, etc. Then it seemed to be Tourette's and OCD and DID. And now it's like autism ADHD is the new thing. I'm autistic myself, and I've had people patronizing me and treating me like a uwu autism when they find out. Answer? Yes. I'm in a group for parents to autistic children. One asked, how do you do when your child is having an anxiety attack? And then 34 of them started to speak about their children's anxiety. So sad, I was just quiet. I couldn't say that my child was harmonious and happy and totally unaware of any worldly requirements or how other people viewed her. Story 5. High school, and by extension, childhood. Yes, bills suck, and yes, everything is expensive now. But when I was a kid, I had no control over my life. Food, clothes, lifestyle, I basically had to do what my parents and others told me to do. I graduated college after 24, and I had never felt so free in my life. I'm 36 now, and I would never take back my life to when I was a kid. I love being an adult and despised being a kid. Story 6. That there is nobility in unrequired suffering. When you're a chronic pain patient, there is no nobility. You're just existing. People do not want to be around someone in pain. It also doesn't make you a better person, more noble, none of that. It's useless suffering that doesn't serve a purpose. If your suffering does not serve a purpose to get something done or to improve yourself, for example, working out to failure, conditioning yourself to the cold if you're wanting to be a special operations trooper, etc., then it's not something to look upon and admire. Saying stuff like, I wish I was that strong. Yeah, no, you don't. That means you'd have to go through something like that, and you get nothing from it. It doesn't help anything. It dominates your life. Story 7. Having a real job. Lots of us are out here making society run with our fake jobs. We also deserve to make a living wage and not to get questioned about, okay, but what do you want to get into? Bro, I like my job and I'm good at it. I'm happier with my job than most of y'all office workers seem to be. Story 8. Romeo and Juliet. Seriously, it is not a love story. Juliet was a minor. Romeo was an adult. On top of that, the only reason Romeo got with Juliet is because Rosalind didn't want to put out. Rosalind refusing Romeo's advances, him spotting Juliet at a dance, him falling in love, and then the takedown tragic end took place in literally over a weekend. Story 9. Couple fights and bickering. I feel like Amber and Matthew from Love is Blind Season 1 epitomized this. They know each other for like less than a year, and their vows were like, I dislike him and he drives me crazy, but our fights only bring us closer together, or some nonsense like, no. Story 10. Having the perfect clean-cut home and matching a certain aesthetic to where people are calling out the husbands wanting to add their stuff to the decor or to the rooms. It's toxic. Your husband lives there too. Let him put up the dumb deer on the wall if he wants. And romanticizing the overconsumption of seasonal products on social media platforms. You do not need the new Hello Kitty or Grinch Christmas blanket every year. Story 11. Autism. I am autistic. I was diagnosed at 5, which was unusual for girls in the early 2000s, and have spent my entire life in turmoil. I'm in graduate school now and married, but autism makes my life so fudge hard that I would not be where I am without the support systems I have in place. I am sick and tired of holistic people online, the medical term for non-autistic individuals, pretending to be autistic, saying, oh, everyone is a little autistic, or downplaying the ways autism, a literal disability, permanently and negatively permeates a person's life. And when it's someone like me, who is higher masking and middle of the road with support needs, people will deny we are autistic because we shatter this romanticized version of what autism is in their eyes. And those same people entirely ignore individuals who have severe autistic traits, the ones who will need immense support their entire life just to live. I'm sick and tired of people pretending that autism isn't an incredibly debilitating disability and flaunting it around as if it's some sort of fluffy pink pony shoot rainbows. Story 12. Crime. So many people on social media try to excuse things like organized flash mob looting or interfering with police investigations by providing false info to save someone. It's always some kind of they've had a hard life or they had no other choice. Meaning, I grew up in the hood. It is 1,000 a fudge choice, and plenty of my peers and me made it out just fine. And yes, I know we have police problems, but y'all exaggerate the ever-living shoot out of how frequent and prevalent those problems are. I'm sick and tired of murderers in my area getting away with their shoot because they're friends with the whole block and everyone agrees to not say shoot to the police. Story 13. Being polyamorous. By all means, do whatever you want, so long as it's safe, sane, and consensual. But don't go around acting like it's the best thing ever, and everyone should do it. Every polyamorous relationship I've ever personally witnessed and always went nowhere in the end. And so far, everyone I've heard of has also ended badly too. My cousin just recently got out of one such relationship. After bragging how great it is to have two partners eventually, it all fell apart when the new girlfriend of the relationship and my cousin's first partner started getting jealous of each other. Shocker. I think a polyamorous relationship can work with the right kind of people who are willing to put in the work and discipline required to do so. So far, though, I haven't met a single poly couple, especially my own cousin who has the relationship work ethic and discipline to do so. Nor do I think such a group of people in a relationship able to make it work would lack the humility to foolishly romanticize their relationship, rather stand proud in the achievement they've made, but not foolishly suggest it for everyone, because it is very obvious it is not for everyone. Story 14. Career in medicine or medical science. The title is fun and all, but no one wants to work hours I'm working, coming home late night to a microwave reheat leftovers and having all my friends and family arrange themselves around my schedule. The only guaranteed surefire way to see me is come have lunch with me at the hospital or pick me up from work to home. Not to mention the decision you make will cause a significant impact no matter what. You are on your feet all day, running around, constantly liaising with every department under the sun, senior after your arse. You've seen everything life could possibly gone wrong, not to mention the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes keeping up with the research. Even with all that, you're highly replaceable, and if you don't want to grind, sucks to be you because someone will happily take your place. The job is extremely fulfilling though, but the good is good, good, the bad is bad, bad. Story 15. Trad wives. There is no historical precedent for trad wives. It was few dads after a world war at best. Traditionally, women have worked alongside men doing everything from farming, running businesses, working in factories or as servants, and slaving all the hours of the day, much like men did just to survive. Unless you were very rich, everyone worked. Story 16. Non-consensual acts within fan-based media as a good thing, like fanfic. I don't want to read a glorified fiction about one character forcing themselves onto another for the sake of titillation, particularly when the character being forced clearly doesn't enjoy it, or worse, is manipulated into being told they enjoy it when everything prior proved they weren't okay with any of the events taking place. Story 17. Intimacy work prostitution. For some people, it is empowering and a decent, respectable, liberating way to earn money. Power to them. But let's stop ignoring the plight of tens of thousands, rather hundreds of thousands people, minors and adults, women and men, who are trafficked and forced into prostitution through violence, coercion, theft, etc. Story 18. Diseases on TikTok like EDS, POTS, fibromyalgia, and mental conditions such as ADHD and autism. TikTok is full of gorgeous young women who have one of the above, self-diagnosed always. These conditions can be debilitating and shouldn't be seen as trendy. Story 19. Introversion. I am an introvert and I am not ashamed about it. But it doesn't make me deep or interesting. And introversion isn't an excuse for not acting like a mature adult. I am sick of seeing posts like, I am an introvert. Help me do this basic human social activity. Social anxiety, awkwardness, and a poor sense of humor aren't traits of introversion. Stop mistaking your social defects for your personality and address them, FFs. People are discriminating against you, not because you are introverted, but because you are likely weird in an off-putting way. Story 20. Being a wine mom. If you do it in and are responsible about it, then do you, girl. But stop posting those stupid quotes and trying to make it cute. You're just making yourself look like an irresponsible person with a drinking problem. This also goes for the obnoxious cannabis moms. Smoke your little dab pen and go build a blanket for it. Stop shouting on the internet about how plant substance makes you a better mom. Story 21. Eating disorders, specifically anorexia. I'm in recovery and have gone to the depths of hell with my disorder. Been hospitalized multiple times, almost died in my sleep. Blown .04 on a breathalyzer while completely sober because my organs were decaying inside of me. And it's extremely disheartening to see and hear the people around me talk constantly about food and diets and losing weight. It's so ingrained in our society. On more than one occasion, I've had people tell me that they wish they could have an eating disorder because then they could be skinny. When the reality of the situation is that I have a parasite in my brain that is yelling at me 247. It's not cute or coquette or something to aspire to. It's a horrifying illness that will eliminate you. Story 22. Romance, actually. People have unrealistic expectations from Disney movies and rom-coms about what relationships should be like. Sure, at first it's butterflies and excitement, but eventually it's just being comfortable with sitting on the couch with someone grunting, and that's just as beautiful. Story 23. RV life. I live it, I love it, but it is not glamorous. It requires dedication and knowing how to make money as a nomad. Our lives aren't cheap. Replacing our rigs when needed is not cheap, and the life is hazardous. To us, and worse, to others. We at least chose it. A lot of these newbies have no idea how to drive a 40-foot class of motorhome, yet here they are on the road with one. In most states, all you need is a regular driver's license. In those that do require a specific license, even then, it is only for over 40 and/or 26,000 pounds. And still no one checks. No cop is out there with a measuring tape. They don't take an RV boot camp course or even know they exist. They don't bother with a private inspection. They just take these monsters on the road. Think about that next time you are behind one of those big bastards. Story 24. The past, particularly when it's an era they did not live through. I'm sick of people talking about how things were so good back in the day and then reference an idealized, sanitized, cherry-picked image of an era decades before they were even born. Even if it was a time they lived through, we're never going back to any previous era of anything. The past is dead. Stop wishing we would return to some era that you have nostalgia for. Story 25. The entire conservative belief structure. America was not better in 1950. Black folks weren't happier as slaves. We shouldn't regress to a time when women were viewed as only a fraction of a person with no bodily autonomy. Reagan was a shoot-fudge president. Story 26. Drinking, it's pretty bad overall. At best, regular drinking is like drinking soda and can contribute to weight gain and other chronic health issues. At its worst, it's dying of alcoholism or eliminates someone behind the wheel. I think about this when ESPN shows someone at a game chugging a beer in the stands, or when country music constantly refers to beer and whiskey, or when a friend on social media posts some picture of them holding a drink with a caption to the tune of it's wine o'clock or it's beer 30. There is literally no redeeming value of drinking other than an hour or two of the initial buzz. Story 27. Marriage. It's work, hard work. And that doesn't mean it isn't also enjoyable and fulfilling. But it's not just being with your best friend, soulmate garbage I see so many people say it is. It's so much more than that, and many people aren't prepared for it. Story 28. Being in the military, it's got its good moments, but unless you find yourself in a good unit or have a safe MOS, there's nothing romantic about what they do, especially special operations stuff. War is literally a nightmare. And because of movies and video games, people are so desensitized to seeing the shoot on media, they go into it with unrealistic expectations. Shoot is not like Battlefield or COD. Firefights are not fun. Even as a ranger with multiple engagements, that shoot never stopped being terrifying. Granted, at the time, I would have never admitted that. The reality is it's people eliminate other people, often in pretty horrific ways. It's not like the movies where you shoot a guy and he just falls down, dead, unless you catch them in the heart or head. Story 29. am going to get downvoted to hell for this, but autism, it's become a trendy excuse for being slightly socially awkward or an excuse to be an AH when the people who really suffer from it don't go around on the internet bragging about it and trying to diagnose other strangers with it. I find it incredibly toxic. Honestly, trying to diagnose anyone with any kind of disease or mental health condition online just because you didn't like a comment someone made. Story 30. ADHD. There's this gross, cringy rhetoric going around about how people with ADHD are all monolithically super charismatic, sparkly social butterflies. And don't get me going about ADHD as my superpower, tee-hee. I'm just like a lifetime of being called weird and underachieving and disappointed parents and furious teachers and toxic relationships and sneering peers and poverty and embarrassing failures and having to start over again and secret destructive habits and compulsions to try and give my brain the stimulation it was desperate for. And miraculously discovering there was a medication that could fix all that, only to be hit with a nationwide shortage. Like fudge me though, guess I'm just crap at ADHD, the awesome people magnet, eternally hypomanic neurodevelopmental disorder. Story 31. I wish people would stop romanticizing the past. I see man and women post photos, aesthetically pleasing pictures of men in suits and women in dresses like everything was normal back then. Racism, sexism, intimacy, repression, and inter-family violence being normal. There is nothing aesthetically pleasing about getting a full frontal lobotomy just because a pretty picture of eating a burger and a milkshake in a suspiciously white-only diner. Story 32. Monetizing your hobbies. A few years ago, there were tons of how to make money as an artist, blogs, and YouTube videos, and now there is an increasing amount of my business failed and am depressed videos. A business requires many other skills that have little to do with production. Story 33. Intense intimacy and romantic passion in relationships. The people I know who seem to be in the healthiest, most sustainable relationships demonstrate a more calm, patient, and nuanced love with moments of passion, excitement, joy, etc. that combine feelings of romance, intimacy, attraction with also a strong platonic and familial type of love. They don't, and never really did, resemble the kind of intense romantic intimacy passion normalized and idealized in media, in which many people seem to desire or interpret as spark in their own relationships. Most of the people I know who are on the constant search for this intense passion and spark end up in unstable and toxic relationships. Story 34. Autism. Everyone's now saying they're neurodivergent and self-diagnosing, acting like it's just another personality trait. I have Asperger's and I dislike it. School was a complete mess with little help. Socializing, it's pretty much non-existent. It's not fun and it's not easy. And I see these people pretending they're on the spectrum and it annoys the shoot out of me. Story 35. Pregnancy and childbirth. I don't see it all as a miracle. Is it fascinating? Yes. Is it life-changing? Yes. Can they possibly cause serious problems or even passing? Absolutely. Luckily, more people are opening up about the downsides rather than playing them off as just sunshine and rainbows. Story 36. I wish people would stop romanticizing toxic relationships. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that love conquers everything, but many people ignore the red flags and emotional turmoil that can come with it. Healthy relationships should be about support and mutual respect, not dramas, struggles, and everything in between. Story 37. Having children. I'm 31 and my sister and 3 sills all had kids between 18 and 23. All through the pregnancy, it was lollipops and sunshine and baby will be everything, blah, blah. Now, all of them are always upset when I don't babysit so they can go out. They made the choice to have a kid. I made the choice to not. Having that baby really sucks when your other 21-yo friends and 31-yo sister can go out and have fun whenever, huh? Story 38. Autism. It's not a superpower or a cool club to belong to. It's a disability. It's annoying, and I wish I didn't have it. I wish other people didn't have it too, because other autistic people are often the most difficult people for me to get along with. Story 39. IDK, if this counts. But saying I'm so OCD, no, you're not. You might be a perfectionist, sure, but OCD and perfectionism are not synonymous. For example, a piece of tape being crooked, sure, it might be bothersome. But do you feel like you're going to not be able to move on with your day? Probably not. Story 40. Marriage and trusting the other person completely. Quickest way to losing it all, for nothing and on someone who never actually valued you. Be very aware of who you are marrying and do not rush into anything. Whirlwind relationships are a fantasy. There is no happily ever after, and people rarely, if ever, change. Love is more than a feeling, and it is constant choice that many stop choosing when anything gets rough. Story 41. Being an early riser, like getting up at 5 a.m., exercising, making breakfast, watching the sunrise, reading a chapter in some self-help book, getting the family up, doing whatever they do all day is so superior and to be admired. These people are rigid and in bed by 9 p.m. I just start getting energy at 9 p.m., waking up at 10 and still getting the same amount of shoot done, but most of it in the middle of the night when it's quiet and empty. Love it, and it doesn't make me lazy, some type of deviant or slacker. Story 42. Intimacy, relationships, any kind, toxicity, content creation, children, overconsumption, body positivity, the fat acceptance sector, eating disorders, any kind, especially anorexia and binge eating disorder, any mental illness or neurodivergency, etc. Story 43. Recycling. It's usually better than throwing things away, and sometimes it's the best available option, but it's also not some magic tool to reduce environmental impact of what you're doing to zero. Much better in most cases to avoid single-use disposable things in the first place and to reuse and maintain things as long as possible. So yes, you should recycle, but better to think of it as a less bad alternative to throwing things away than as something that's actively good. Story 44. Helping people. You help people just because and treat them with respect when they decline or act like it's no biggie when they thank you. But a lot of people help others because they want to be a good person in the eyes of others and get defensive when you decline their help. And this is for basic stuff. There's a set of people who think it's their duty to force out people's non-existent personal problems to help them and be a hero. And it gets very obvious that they are only nice to be thanked when the person they're pressuring creates an awkward situation by proving them wrong about the accusation. Story 45. Anti-work. There's nothing wrong with fighting for better conditions, for fair pay, for not going the extra mile for no recompense. But it's getting crazy now. We are teaching kids resilience. There will be days that are tough, and you have to be able to hack it. Life will never be fair to you. Great opportunities will not fall into your lap. If you want your life to improve, you have to put things in place to make that happen. Choosing to not engage with the world isn't going to make life better. Treating every hardship as if it's a personal slight will not breed fortitude. It's not about being a sucker. It's about realizing that hard times sometimes call for hard resolve. Story 46. Bad boys. Not the corny bikers. Like dude playing hurt by life constantly. Kind of dude who allows themselves to be angry whenever they want, like a powder keg ready to explode. Almost all of those I met were the artsy type. These MFers can go straight fudge themselves. I have seen so many girlfriends falling for them only to suffer afterwards, ranging from being treated like shoot to violation attempts and takedown attempts. They should go to therapy instead of fudge others' people's lives. Story 47. Executive compensation. Executive pay is out of all bounds and reason, and it needs to stop. There are zero natural forces pushing on this, though, so it will only happen with regulation. When the rich executives own the politicians, that can't happen. So we get what we have here, which is disgusting. Story 48. Pregnancy. It's beautiful and miraculous in a lot of ways, but it's life-threatening in so many ways to women. Risk of having a stroke from eclampsia, ectopic pregnancy, having to go on bed rest to prevent preterm birth, having ribs broken from fierce kicks, coping with gestational diabetes, which can happen to anyone, etc. Also, there are two choices for birth, and they are both severely painful and can cause risk of life to the woman from blood loss and other complications. Also, the normal discomforts, nausea, incredible fatigue, soreness, sensitivity to smell, triggering more nausea, craving or avoiding very specific foods, huge hormone fluctuations, difficulty breathing from squished organs, having to pee all the time, etc. Don't get me wrong, it is truly wonderful and worth the risks for the women that want to birth children, but it's not a cakewalk most of the time, and would be nice to have people stop romanticizing it and recognizing the actual truth about it for many, many women. Story 49. Mental illness, and then harassing people when they see someone going through the unattractive parts of it. For example, my ex-boyfriend thought it was so sexy I was depressed until I couldn't shower for a week because it got so bad. Suddenly, it's disgusting and gross for me to have it, which I understood finding me not showering gross, but to say go back to your old state of depression, it was hotter, really stung, and felt so icky. After I got through the couldn't get out of bed for 2 weeks thing, I naturally dumped his jerk. Depression and any other mental illnesses are not something to find sexy, hot, or desirable. They suck to live with and sexualizing. Romanticizing it makes things worse for everyone involved. Story 50. Marriages, relationships of the past. I get it. A lot of people grew up with parents and grandparents who had really good relationships, and a lot of people didn't. Not all marriages would last because our grandparents cared about marriage. A lot of them continued because half the people in those marriages couldn't get a job, or a bank account, or a loan, or a divorce. Story 51. The good old days, especially as it pertains to relationships, family life, and traditional gender roles. All these people, men especially, wishing we could go back to how things used to be, romanticizing the relationships and lifestyles past generations had, and wondering why no one stays married anymore. It's often because the women usually didn't have any other choice, especially once they had children. Story 52. Mental illnesses. I live with a few very commonly romanticized illnesses, and while sometimes it does have its perks, I assure you that you do not want a girl that is literally obsessed with you. Borderline PD is incredibly taxing emotionally and physically. I have lost relationships and friendships because of it. No matter how many steps I take to better myself, I end up relapsing at some point. There's a difference between wanting to spend time with someone a lot and literal obsession. I had a psychotic break when my ex left me because I could not stand the thought of being without him, and was almost institutionalized because of how bad it got. Even little things can trigger these breakdowns, and it's sometimes not even the same things. Some days I will have the breakdown is my boyfriend even says something in an off tone. Other days I am completely shut down mentally. Some days it's back and forth. It's never the same. And most times you aren't even fully aware of how you are feeling. And if you are, you often cannot control it. Imagine watching another entity puppet your body while you sit back and try all you can to stop it, but you can't. You know it's wrong, but you cannot stop it. Story 53. Substances. I used to work at a bar and was shocked about how everyone does it, and it is so common. Even most of my colleagues did it. Almost felt like I was missing out. It's not okay to normalize these things. I get it. It's fun and gives you energy and all, but do it. Then I don't know, once in every 6 months, should do it at all, but not every day when it is a normal work day. Story 54. Being tired and overworked is some sort of merit to your work ethic and overall value as a person, and this idea that people who don't want that are lazy. Why can't we be celebrated for wanting to provide the minimum that our corporate jobs ask for and getting by? I have a lot more to worry about in my day-to-day than some multi-millionaire CEO. I make comfortable money, but I still need to choose if I want to eat nicely for the month, save money, or if I'm allowed a luxury purchase each month. And many people don't even get that choice. And then on top of that is my own mental health and well-being, hobbies, staying fit, and trying to maintain a social life. I will not be putting extra hours in at work, nor will I ever now to the expectation. My life and my work life are firmly separated. Story 55. All natural and organic. Of course, food is organic. It's made of cells and decays. Poison ivy is natural, but I'm not rubbing it on me in any way. It's fine to have a tea or something for something small like a stomachache or stress, but it shouldn't be a replacement for medicine for serious issues. Story 56. Japan, and countries in general. I think there are some benefits to it because when you romanticize something, you appreciate and enjoy details about it, which is beautiful. The bad comes when people take it too far. They either justify everything a place does because they think it can do no wrong, which hurts others, or they don't learn about the potential negatives of a place which hurts themselves because it leads to them being sorely disappointed, especially if they decide to move there. Story 57. Mental illness, but we all know that. Also, it is really weird how people who aren't diagnosed or don't have mental illness go online to talk about something they don't have or pretend to have it. Mental illness isn't fun or makes you special or have superpowers. It's a terrible and sad thing. You can't stop fudge up, and people will stigmatize you for it. Why would you want that? Story 58. Serial killers. It doesn't matter if they're hot or handsome, they eliminate someone. They took someone away from their families forever. I've seen so many fan accounts on TikTok for infamous killers like Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, and Richard Ramirez. I've no clue how people find these freaks attractive. And also videos on the Wade Wilson case saying free Wade Wilson. It makes me sick to my stomach how some people can be so inconsiderate and disrespectful to their victims' families. Story 59. Having children. Gambling with someone else's life, and potentially yours since your standard of living tanks too if you produce something half-baked, is not cool. It is irresponsible. There is so much outside of one's control, despite even the intentions. Story 60. Longing. It's in so much romance media and is portrayed as being indicative of love, but it's anything but. Longing indicates lack. You don't long for something you already have. because you have it. Abused or neglected children long for their parents' love, and they learn to associate love with longing. When they grow up, they give all of their time, effort, attention to people that they long for. All that longing takes up their emotional bandwidth, and they can unintentionally forget about the people in their lives that actually show up for them. This creates a feedback loop where they stay stuck in bad relationships. If your life was filled with people who showed up for you, you wouldn't feel any longing. You would feel loved. Also, longing is different from missing someone. You don't long for the people who love you because they love you. There is no emotional lack in their connection to you that you can long to be fulfilled. It is already fulfilled. So when you miss someone, there's an implication that they miss you too. You are mutually important to each other. You miss someone who loves you because you are missing the person themselves. You long for someone who does not love you because you aren't longing for them as a person so much as you are longing for their love, attention, affection, approval. It's almost an objectification, actually, heading into limerence territory. Story 61. Being pregnant and going through labor and childbirth and afterbirth and breastfeeding and bleeding and going back home to a bee-wife, mother, maid, therapist, doormat while your body tries to push your organs back in place. Your hormones are being extremely disrespectful, and your mother-in-law invites herself over to help. Story 62. Being overly concerned about climate change and the planet, this one really bugs me. A good fiend of mine has a PhD in climatology and studied at a top-tier university. Ever since climate change became trendy, he's been inundated with all these climate change eco-warrior students who enroll in his intro class as an elective, and they come in convinced of all this stuff that's simply not true. I could list of a half dozen or more facts his students tell him, but I'll just go with the one that I personally found the most interesting. He sent me this in an email so I can give you all his direct quote. Nobody knows for certain what role human beings played in causing climate change. But there is one thing we do know for certain, whether humans cause global warming or not, which climatologists are a bit split in, but I do believe humans played a part, some don't. That is still up for debate, and some might change their opinions as we get more information. But while we do not yet know whether humans caused this, we have unfortunately learned that there is precious little we can do now to reverse it. Absolutely every action we are taking, while noble, will not have any significant effect on what's happening. We honestly do not have the ability to fix this. We really don't. He told me this is a massive area of research, obviously, and it really is a crisis, but he himself has expressed personal frustration because even though he obtained degrees from the Ivy League and also studied at Stanford, he'll get reamed if he speaks on the record and offers his expert opinion or presents any of the highly respected research. Most of the people his field have been enormously frustrated because despite having a borderline obsession with the field of climatology, the media rarely features interviews with actual climatologists. And when they do, they tend to pressure them to tile the narrative away from the actual science and give sound bites that support their narrative. I had never really noticed that, but once he pointed it out, I realized he was right. We're being inundated with climate change stories, but where are the actual climatologists? We should be seeing interviews from everyone in the field, but part of the reason the media is actively choosing to avoid them is because they are monitoring this situation round the clock, tracking various carbon output and doing calculations to determine how legislation over fracking are affecting the climate. Like, did global warming accelerate under Donald Trump? Did it get better when he left office, etc.? What effect have EVs had, and solar power, and on and on? We're passing all these laws and making major changes to try to combat this. None of this is working. It bugs me to watch the political debates about the subject. Apologies for the rant. Story 63. Verbal and physical abuse of women in TV shows and movies. Cough Turkish dramas, cough, cough. U2K dramas. Why can't y'all write a story without including SA, kidnappings, druggings, beatings, enslavement, and forced marriage? I fast forward through so many violent scenes. And the fact that you blur out smoking and drinking is a joke. Story 64. Toxic couples, real or fictional. If he's the Joker to your Harley Quinn or the Bonnie to your Clyde, etc., get the fudge as far away from me as possible. I won't have you in my life, even if we're not the couple. I don't want your fudge shoot in my life. Story 65. Being available and talking to someone all the time. I'm sorry, but I was a full and complete person before I met you, and you do not get to suddenly claim every minute of my life. If you do not want me attached to my phone the entire time I'm with you, then don't expect me to be attached to my phone the entire time I'm not with you. Story 66. Getting tipsy. When you're 21, it feels exciting and rebellious. Of course, all your friends have to deal with your drunken shoot and look after you, which I'm sure they really enjoy doing after the third or so time. After 26, though, you feel like such shoot that you want to die. Story 67. Doing dangerous stuff unnecessarily. I think this can be applied to a lot of things, but I see it a lot in the climbing community. These old school climbers romanticize going out underprepared and doing dangerous and dumb stuff. The whole, it's not really climbing unless there's a chance you don't come back. Like what? There's no reason to take that approach to climbing. We have so much stuff to keep us safe. Climbing accidents are usually human error, and most climbing deaths are totally avoidable. It's not cool, so do it dangerously. It just means you're dumb. Story 68. Abusive and controlling relationships. Your partner isn't trying to look out for you. If they don't want you to go out with your friends or to stop hanging out with your friends, they're controlling and trying to isolate you. It's not respecting your partner for them to demean the way you dress or call it inappropriate, especially when that's how you dress before it's controlling. It's not cute that this person keeps trying to come back into your life after you broke up with him, and it's not cute that you keep taking them back. Story 69. Mental illnesses like BPD, depression, bipolar, ASPD, or even something like autism. We can educate people and have stories, shows, etc. that have those themes in them, but there is a difference between talking about those themes and educating and explaining they exist instead of stuff that actually romanticizes them and just causes further stigma. Story 70. Getting married early and having kids. There are very few people who are emotionally and financially ready to have both at an early age, and aside from people who may have been forced into it, e.g. violation, it is not glamorous nor something people should aspire to. I see people think it's so cute to do this, but I honestly believe that you're doing your children a disservice when you don't have the means or don't have a stable environment to bring them into. There is value in waiting and taking your time and working on yourself before getting married and having kids. Story 71. That getting in street fights is cool and should be sought after. I legitimately don't even know how many scraps I've been in. From the ages of 15 to 24, 25, it seemed like darn near every weekend. I'm now 43 and still have injuries and scars from those days, both physical and mental. I've matured, mellowed, and have great kids and a career. It's the last thing you'd want to do now. I wish the younger generation would stop glorifying it and think it's cool. It's probably the least cool thing I can think of. Story 72. Trips involving air travel. Long flights generally am zapped when I land and then realize I don't even want to be there. My wife wants to go on trips requiring 10 HR flights, etc. I have no interest. I don't like flying. I don't like large gatherings. I stopped drinking about 8 years ago. There's just nothing there that interests me. I'd rather go somewhere an hour or 3 away and maximize the downtime. Story 73. The Mafia. The cartels. Nothing like a bunch of fudge murderers, rapists, substances trafficking, racketeering, smuggling, intimacy trafficking, kidnapping, government interfering, thieving, pimping, child eliminate, family destroying, state line crossing, mail fraud, tax evasion, internationally wanted criminals to set a good example for your kids. Story 74. Bipolar disorder. No, you are not bipolar because you woke up, laughed at a funny YouTube video, then felt sad again. You are not bipolar because you went from having fun to being bored, or went from happy to upset. That's called having emotions. A lot of people don't even truly understand exactly what bipolar is, or how it affects a person in their daily life. It's not quirky, it's not a talking point personality trait, it's not something to fluff your Instagram profile with. It sucks. Story 75. Having DI multiple personalities, it's not a superpower, it's not built-in friends, it's not something to want. It's a serious childhood trauma disorder that ruins lives. The amnesia alone is debilitating. A lot of films and media also depict us as murderous psycho killers, or at best as a bad twist plot device. Story 76. Expecting romantic partners to fulfill the unmet emotional needs that we should have received from our parents. I know that parental neglect and abuse are horrible, leaving us with a lot of unmet needs, but expecting our romantic partners to psychologically give us what our father-mother should have given us as a child, a feeling of total protection from life's hardships, catering to our every emotional need, etc., is a recipe for disaster. We can expect support, emotional availability, caring, etc., from our partners, but as partners, not the same unconditional level that we should get from a parent as children. Story 77. I could list out so many mental illnesses right here and now, but I feel like dissociative identity disorder and other specified dissociative disorder are massive victims of this. It isn't fun. It's not quirky. I went through so much hell as a child, I don't even remember a thing, and I never will. I dislike the people inside me, and they dislike me too. I want it to go away, but final fusion sounds so horribly difficult. I'd rather live my life broken like glass than try to do it. Story 78, street racing. It's really dangerous and irresponsible no matter where you live, but my region is particularly condensed, and it's still somehow super popular. I am 2 to 3 degrees away from about a dozen people who were left with brain injuries or died as a result of street racing. Story 79. Having a baby. Sure, it's magical, but seriously think and at least try to get into a good financial position before you procreate. My parents waited almost 15 years into their marriage before they started trying for kids. I never knew what it was like to worry about home food insecurity. That was saved for my 20s. Story 80. Plurality. Dissociative disorders are a real illness, and if you have it, the appropriate response is to acknowledge it and find treatment to the best of your ability. The wrong way to do it is to prance around in a VR avatar and treat it like some role play thing. Making other people subscribe to this romanticized, warped view of the illness is incredibly selfish and mocks people who actually suffer from dissociative disorders. You don't get to expect people to keep up with rapid personality switches because it's just the way I am. If you tell me, hey, I've got XYZ disorder and I have trouble keeping a constant personality. I'm sorry if that's uncomfortable. I'm trying my best. Then that is fine. Thank you for informing me and respecting the gravity of what you're challenged with. You earn so much more respect if you just take it seriously. If you walk around online with like 7 different accounts or VR avatars or what have you, and you foster it like a community or try to equate it to coming out as gay or trans or whatever, then we simply won't interact. If you do that, you either don't understand the seriousness of dissociative disorders, are playing into the fad, and have psyched yourself into developing a tulpa. Tulpas are mental tools, nothing more. They're a thought exercise. You found something that makes you feel different from the norm and want to defend that. Please find something better to defend than your mockery of an illness you probably don't have, or at the very least aren't taking seriously. Why am I mad about this when I don't have a dissociative disorder myself? Well, for one, I really don't feel like engaging in what is effectively role play. Every time I talk to someone, unless they themselves understand the gravity of the situation and make it very clear that it's a problem and that they are trying their best. The other part is that I recently had a friend go through a dissociative episode, go missing for about 5 hours, and end up in a hospital because they didn't know what they were doing. This is why you take this shoot seriously. You don't romanticize it in any way, shape, or form. You get help so that if you suddenly dissociate, you have coping mechanisms or treatment or precautions so that you don't accidentally go missing or end up dead. God fudge darn. Story 81. The view that teachers need to sacrifice everything that they have for their job. The following things are not okay. Teachers using their own money to buy supplies materials. Teachers having to devote an ungodly number of additional hours every day to fulfill the basic job requirements, i.e., lesson planning, grading, additional paperwork, emails, phone calls. Teachers being required to, and evaluated on, attending a ridiculous number of after-school events to demonstrate to students' families how much we care. Teachers having no recourse when dealing with violent behaviors in the classroom. Story 82. The good old days. OMG, there was nothing romantic about any of it. Cherry pick the best and conveniently forget the rest. Most of the cool stuff that people my age look back on with nostalgia was because of the fact that we were young. That's it. Story 83. Mental illness, especially less understood ones like DID, dissociative identity disorder. I don't personally have it, but someone close to me got diagnosed a few years ago. Since so many people sensationalize it, my closest friend has to justify their diagnosis with health professionals. Having a mental illness is not cute. It doesn't make you quirky. It's fudge debilitating, especially untreated. Hell, even treated, it's still debilitating. People need to stop using the guise of mental illness for attention. Seek help if you're actually having issues. Even if you don't have access to professional help, there's so many self-help resources. Story 84. Easiest question as an answer in my life, but I have 2 answers. Having children and relationships. For children, people see children as an aesthetic extension of their life. And of course, whole nother human being with thoughts, memories, and aspirations is way more than that. People think to themselves about all the ways it can save their relationship, how it makes them look when they take them to soccer practice, and more. Let's not let ourselves forget. People always look at children as a second mini-them, which is fine in moderation because they are half of you. But that doesn't mean they should live up to what you wanted for you. In other words, how about let's not force-feed our children versions of ourselves that we couldn't live up to fill an insecure void. PPLL have strong opinions and believe there is no other answer other than what they have gathered as correct or good. These same people indoctrinate their children to live up to all their worldviews and opinions and not give their underdeveloped brains to make their own opinions and ask their own questions. Then they teach their children what is right, so their children can be parasite of biased opinions they don't question as they get older and are left with no original thoughts, just your own. OFC, it's good to be confident in your views, but it's never good to be so confident that you can't be open to hearing anything else than what you want to believe in. For relationships, same umbrella with the children. People are more in love with the idea of a relationship more than they actually love their partner. The amount of shoot people do for love and not from love is insane. People that post their before O's and after DL. I met this person that made me so happy and solve all of my internal issues I was supposed to solve myself. Pictures on the internet showing people that relationships with people can solve your issues in yourself when in reality, that shouldn't be the case. If you're one breakup away from having this rug ripped out from under you, the problem was never solved. You just used a relationship for escapism. And if you have nothing going for you other than your relationship, what do you think that says about you? If this is you, don't waste your breath on a relationship, especially if you're not ready. And you're not ready for a relationship if you can't be happy without one. Story 85. People who romanticize their toxic traits. The whole "I'm a crazy meanie, love it or leave" vibe. My mother is like this. Every social media post is about how she's totally fine being these really terrible things. Like, you are in your 50s. It's time to grow up and work on your issues. It's not cute at 20. It most certainly isn't cute 35 years later. Story 86. The 1950s. The U.S. was virtually untouched through WW2, and our production was used to fill the gap while so many other places had to rebuild. Scaling back rights, culture, and norms to suit some idealized concept of the 50s isn't going to bring back that post-war economy. Too many PPO are stuck in a cultural cargo cult mindset. Story 87. Casual romanticism of extreme dangerous kink. Wording this very carefully, as I'm into kink myself and find it quite romantic at times, and I don't want to discourage people who are dabbling in kink in a gatekeeping way. The problem I have is with people who think that choking is a good starting place, or who think that kink is about genuine manipulation, or about not having limits. Anyone who gets into kink not knowing about SS crack or some other consent model, not knowing about negotiations, safe words, and aftercare is not ready for kink. Anyone who gets into a specific kink without knowing how to do it safely, especially ones that can be fatal like fudge choking, are being very risky with not only themselves but another person. Kink is fantastic, and I love my kink relationships, but for Christ's sake, do your research and have some common sense. Story 88. Mental illness. I'm tired of people bragging about how they have autism, ADHD, depression, or whatever, like it's something to strive for. It's usually people who weren't actually diagnosed and just self-diagnosed based off a TikTok video. Mental illness is not something you want or should romanticize because it's in reality a living hell to live with. Story 89. White women and white feminism in society. We really let movies like Mean Girls get a pass. Let's change that, because let's be real. White women are bottom of the barrel, not all, just the Mean Girls type. Oh, and poor token Asian chicks, they've always been under these white women's control. Story 90. Revolution. And I'm talking about the mob of online keyboard warriors on all sides of the political spectrum who always fantasize about being a part of a revolution. They want all of the best parts and outcomes without dealing with the absolute horror and violence that comes with leading or being a part of revolutions. Entire families being massacred over one individual's actions, all mafia style, being stripped of your individual rights and autonomy, scarcity and resources, people you love being eliminated brutally. It's not as easy as, I'm going to post something edgy on Twitter because I fundamentally want this end result. It's months on top of years, on top of decades of bloodshed. That's why survivors of real revolutions are left with PTSD and trauma from those years of trying to survive through them. Story 91. Being in medicine, being a doctor, I kind of blame this on TV shows. But as someone who is actually in the field of medicine, it gets romanticized so much. I see how it makes everyone's egos so big, especially undergrads. And that's when it gets dangerous, because Then you stop respecting the people's lives that you're actually trying to save. Story 92. Overconsumption and status fashion, especially when it's directed at kids and young adults who don't realize how much debt can destroy lives and relationships later on. The whole influencer culture is toxic, and luxury brands and related companies should be held accountable for purposefully targeting demographics that don't have the expendable income to afford their products. It needs to be recognized as an addiction and legislated accordingly. It's sad to see. Story 93. Infidelity in the context of an agreed-upon monogamous relationship. It's downright abusive behavior that causes severe emotional trauma and lifelong issues for the victim. It's romanticized in movies and television constantly, yet it's one of the most deplorable and damaging of human behaviors.